Little Scrap by Phil Wingfield. Bouge, 17th of October 2017. It is approaching lunchtime. We have just returned from our climb of Bouge Hill to see the old fortifications. Our rickshaw drops us near to our hotel, and as we walk back, a pair of beggars try their luck. Two girls, maybe just into double figures, spot us, cross the road and home in, begging bowls in hand. Bouge is the tourist destination, so this is quite common. They follow us along the road asking for money in Gujarati. I don't understand what they are saying, but it can't be anything else. As one of them draws level, I note she is carrying a third member of the party on her arm. Asleep on the girl's shoulder with arms around her neck is the tiniest child. The child is so small I didn't notice straight away that it was a child. The girl carrying her is far from strapping, but has no trouble carrying this minute bundle. They are all dressed in old dirty clothes. The girl with the passenger is wearing what looks like an old school smock. They are a sorry sight, but at least they are smiling as they thrust their bowls under our noses. We are coming up on a street food stall. I decide to buy them some food rather than give them cash. There might be someone somewhere taking the cash off them. You never know. But they can't take food out of their bellies. I tell the stallholder to give them whatever they want and I'll pay. It won't be much, even if they stuff themselves. When the tiny passenger is brought down, I can see it is another girl. But I can only tell that from her clothes, such as they are. She is almost like a doll, a ragged and tatty little doll. She wears a filthy yellow t-shirt with lacy sleeves and a 60s style image of a girl's head and shoulders on the front, the only clue to her gender. She wears a pair of faded jogging bottoms. A rip in the joggers from front to back has been repaired using heavy white thread and a darning needle, with all the finesse of Victor Frankenstein. She is very young, probably no more than 2 years old. It's hard to tell, but she's just a scrap, a tiny scrap of a human being, dirty, malnourished. Her hair looks sparse and it sticks up in all directions. She looks as if she is thinning on top, but it's just because it's in dire need of a wash. Her clothes, small as they are, swamp her. The t-shirt, unable to stay on her scrawny frame, hangs down over one shoulder. Her thin, bony arms look all the thinner, emerging from the baggy sleeves. Not that they are baggy, they just look it on her. The skin on her tiny hands is dry and lined, like the skin of an older woman. She wears two simple necklaces. One is a thin piece of plaited string, and the other is thicker and larger, a twisted scrap of fabric knotted under her chin. The thing is dark and shiny with dribble, as if she has had it on since birth, and the neck is so scrawny. Her equally minuscule legs and feet make her joggers resemble flares. She has a pair of plain and industrial-looking anklets on her right leg, two split metal circles whose ends cross like a pair of giant key rings, and naturally, no footwear. The skin on the underside of her tiny feet is dry and rough, but not calloused from walking. I imagine she is too small and young to walk for long, or far. At the very least, even if it's filthy, torn and way too big, she has a full outfit on. I see these poor little sods, toddling around stark naked in the rubbish outside their makeshift homes, and I wonder, how small can a mercy get before we stop being thankful for it? I have no way of knowing this girl's name, so I call her Little Scrap, as that is all she was, a tiny scrap of a girl, homeless, hungry, and all too common. The three of them sit on the ground next to the stall to eat. I take a couple of photos and the older girls both smile. Little Scrap looks at me with a variety of expressions. Happy is not one of them, but she is probably trying to process what is happening around her. I make faces trying to coax a smile, but only succeed in making her look either confused or a bit frightened. And that was that. I left them there, squatting on the ground with their meagre meals on cardboard plates. Went out to a swanky restaurant for lunch. Postscript. When I looked at the photos in detail, I noticed that Little Scrap didn't have any food of her own. She is sharing with the girl who carried her, I asked the stallholder to feed them all and bill me. I have no idea why she didn't have a plate to herself. If anyone needed feeding, it was this mite. She was so small, I may have mentioned that. In one of the photos, I can see that she is eating, and there is food on her hand. Maybe she was too young to feed herself. As I said, it's hard to tell. In one of my photos, she is looking up at the camera. She has the biggest brown eyes you've ever seen, and an expression so sad it breaks my heart every time I look at it. It makes me wish I could reach into the photo and bring her out, rescue her from the life of poverty she is doomed to lead, take her away from a world that barely notices her or a deplorable situation. I wouldn't care if it did. But she is just one of millions. In the years since this meeting, the pandemic and the lockdown hit these people hard. I suppose that, in a way, they are better equipped to deal with such things. But that doesn't make it right, does it? I monitored the situation in Bhuj and other cities through the social media pages of a group known as the Robin Hood Army. The RHA are active in many cities around India and further afield. They gather surplus food from stalls and restaurants and give it to the people living on the streets. They post photos on social media, and in September 2020, they posted a photo that I am very sure was Little Scrap. She wasn't much bigger, but she was still there. And I have to believe she is still, out there and getting by. And if I ever go back to Bhuj, I will find her, if I can, and buy her a meal of her own. Little Scrap was written and read by Phil Wingfield.